my history teacher, my AP World history teacher, I had her for a year and a half before I moved. She taught us about racism and basically why it ended up in the way that like it is today, where anyone darker than whatever, anyone with non-European features is hated.
Yeah.
And she explained it, and I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it. All right, let me just jump into this. There's this old film from the 40s after World War II called Don't Be a Sucker. And it's an anti-Nazi film, basically. And it's absolutely fascinating. It talks about what it was like to coming up in Germany and how hatred spread and everything. And I feel like it's an apt film to talk about right now. I've talked about it before, but let's go through it again. It'll be worth the watch. Army Pictorial Service, or Pictorial, I'm sorry. It looks like an old, like Looney Tunes cartoon. Interestingly, this is around the time when wrestling was revealed as fake. Basically, the Wall Street Journal, I believe, was reporting on wrestling results until they realized that it was planned. Like, the results were planned, and they stopped reporting the results. And I know you can't tell, but this is actually supposed to be showing how absurdly fake it is. They're acting here.
This looks like a fake, doesn't it? Well, it is a fake. But here's a fella who's willing to bet his hard-earned money on it. Henry here got on the train with $200.
By the way, guys, check out my new shop, owenmorgan.com/shop. I have a bunch of really cool designs on there.
Sorry, I really love this accent. I love watching like old clips and stuff with this accent. It's just so good.
It is.
Couldn't see any harm in a friendly game of cards. What if the other men were strangers? And take Joe Collins. He's got a nice wife at home. But he met this girl at the bar, and she looked kinda cute after the first couple of drinks.
Ooh, pistol whipped.
Did they just kill him on camera?
I think they knocked him out. Yeah.
It's just as bad.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Money.
That was my reaction.
There's a good old-fashioned word for people like this. We call them suckers. And there are other people. People who stay up nights figuring out how to take away what they've got. There are all kinds of games and all kinds of suckers. Take Mike here, for instance. He's got everything, you might say. He's young, he's healthy, he's got a job. And he's got a country called America. It's a wonderful thing to have. America. Lots of room. Room enough to raise plenty of food. Big factories to make things a man can use. Big cities to do the business of a big country. And people. Lots of people. Enough to work the farm and build the factories, dig the mines, and run the business. All kinds of people. People from different countries with different religions, different colored skins.
Remember, this is produced, I think, in 1948, which is a few years after the war ended. And it was unacceptable. we were still under Jim Crow laws. Segregation was still in full effect, and it was not very common for kids to play together that were of a different skin color.
Free people.
Oops.
They can live together and work together and build America together because they're free. Free to vote, to say what they please, go to their own churches, to pick their own jobs. Yeah, Mike's got something, all right. He's got America. But there are guys who stay up nights figuring out how to take that away from him.
I want to give you the truth, folks. The truth about America. I know you've got a lot of questions. You want to know why you're not getting the breaks you deserve.
This is populism. Populism is, hang on.
It's seen as, like, I recognize this.
You've probably seen it because I've covered it a few times in great detail. Populism is a political approach or style of politics rather than a fixed ideology. At its core, it frames politics as a struggle between two groups, the pure people and the corrupt elite. Pure people imagined as ordinary, hardworking, morally upright citizens. Corrupt elite are portrayed as powerful, self-serving figures, politicians, corporations, media, etc., who betray or exploit the people. Populist movements argue that society should reflect the general will of the people and that elites are illegitimate or out of touch. Now, that's generally, for the most part, that sometimes that's true, but there's right-wing populism that is used against people a lot. In World War II, Hitler was a right-wing populist who labeled the Jews as that out-of-touch elite group that was trying to take advantage of innocent, hardworking Germans. It's a popular message a lot of the time and can very easily be turned against people. If you are falling for a populist movement or following one, you should take a very close look to make sure you're not being manipulated. Maybe not. Maybe you're not. But you should look real hard because that's how people are manipulated. Anti-elite rhetoric, criticism of established political, economic, or cultural elites, claim to represent the people. Leaders represent themselves as the voice of ordinary citizens. Moral divide, politics is cast in moral terms. The people are good and the elites are bad. It's a black and white kind of mindset, which is why it's bad. Flexibility. Populism can attach itself to different ideologies. Left-wing populism often targets economic elites like corporations and billionaires. Right-wing populism often targets cultural or political elites like immigration policy makers or global institutions. Left-wing populist examples, Evo Morales or Hugo Chavez. Right-wing populists, Donald Trump, Marine Le Pen, Jair Bolsonaro. I don't know why they didn't list the most famous right-wing populist, which is Hitler. Anyway, the point is that this is populism, black and white thinking, which is a problem. There is nuance to everything. And if you're not seeing the nuance, then you should look a little harder.
Well, I'm not a politician, but I've made it my business to study these things, and I happen to know the facts. Now, friends, I'm just an average American. But I'm an American.
This is exactly what Hitler said. The Americans were the honest, hardworking people. Well, he said the Germans were the honest, hardworking people. And the non-Germans were the elites, the evil people that were taking advantage of the hardworking Germans. He framed Jews as immigrants. They were the immigrants. He even called them aliens. They're the aliens that need to be taken care of. The alien problem, he used to refer to it. The Jewish question, the alien problem, that kind of thing.
Didn't Hitler stand up on a soapbox like this and like talk whatever?
I don't know if Hitler specifically did, probably, but Nazis certainly did. And we'll see a depiction of it in a minute. Hitler may have. I'm just not familiar with a specific occasion.
Because I just remember seeing clips of at least Nazis standing up on like a stage or a soapbox, like this kind of scene outside with a large crowd surrounding them.
Right.
And some of the things I see in this country of ours make my blood boil. I see people with foreign accents making all the money. I see Negroes holding jobs that belong to me and you. Now I ask you, if we allow this thing to go on, what's going to become of us real Americans?
This divide between real and fake Americans, is black and white thinking. It leads down a bad path every single time. Every single time.
For the record, Trump has said stuff basically exactly like this. He said people with foreign accents making all the money. Trump says
And he literally refers to, well, God, I have some examples. You want some?
Yeah.
All right.
I do want to watch this entire video.
Okay, it's not too long, so we'll get through it.
Yeah.
Here you go. Here's a good example of Trump using language right out of the mouth of Hitler. Direct quote.
I think I've seen this.
Pledge to you that we will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country.
Word for word quote, except he didn't use the word fascist.
Because he was fascist, right?
Yeah, and Trump is fascist too, but he figured he'd throw it in because why not? He'll mix it up.
And I mean, people know that fascism is bad. Trump can pretend to not be fascist. They know fascism is bad, but they don't know what that means.
And here's another.
No control whatsoever. Nobody has any idea where these people are coming from. And we know they come from prisons. We know they come from mental institutions, insane asylums. We know they're terrorists. Nobody has ever seen anything like we're witnessing.
It's a complete lie, but okay.
Nobody has ever seen anything like we're witnessing right now. It is a very sad thing for our country. It's poisoning the blood of our country.
Direct quote from Hitler. Poisoning the blood. Word for word. So anyway, they're effectively the same in their rhetoric style and their everything else. But okay, let's continue with this.
What's going to become of us real Americans?
I've heard this kind of talk before, but I never expected to hear it in America.
This fellow seems to know what he's talking about.
Yes, he knows all right.
What's the answer? What are we real Americans going to do about it? You'll find it right here in this little pamphlet. The truth about Negroes and foreigners. The truth about the Catholic Church. Now, friends, these books are free. Paid for by real Americans who want others to know the truth.
Excuse me, young man, but are you actually going to read that stuff?
Sure, why not? You heard what he said.
Yes, I heard. Do you believe in that kind of talk?
I don't know, makes pretty good sense to me.
I'm speaking to you as an American. And I tell you, friends, we'll never be able to call this country our own until it's a country without.
This is also why it's really important to read both sides. That's why I will sometimes look on Fox News and see what they say, even though they're not a real news source. I'll look on CNN. I will look literally everywhere to see every single thing that is being said, because this guy's standing up here and talking, and he sounds all confident, and he's giving this dude a research pamphlet. And the dude says, well, it makes sense. He seems to know what he's talking about, so maybe it's true. You have to make sure you're not falling for just some guy on the street who's very confident about what he's saying.
Right, 100%.
Without what? Yeah, without what? Without Negroes. Without alien foreigners. Without Catholics. Without Freemasons. You know these things.
What's wrong with the Masons? I'm a Mason.
All of those people that the guy listed were demonized specifically by the Nazis.
What? Yeah, without what? Without Negroes. Without alien foreigners.
Alien foreigners is the term used to describe Jews in Germany.
And this was made in
48, I believe.
Yeah, 1948.
So 40 years or so after, yeah.
So him saying, what was it? Illegal aliens?
Hitler referred to them as aliens.
Well, what did the guy just say?
Alien foreigners?
Alien foreigners.
Yeah.
And now look at Trump.
Yeah.
Look at what Trump has said. He quoted this.
It's identical.
Without Catholics. Without Freemasons. You know these things.
What's wrong with the Masons?
What is
I'm
a
a Mason.
We talked about this, didn't we? I don't...
Maybe.
All right. Freemasons are a group of... It started out as a masonry, like a brick building union in the 1700s, I think. And they're basically just like a social group that people get together and they go to their little clubs. They meet up and they hang out with each other and things and just have a good time. They talk about morals and politics. there's really like the secret about Freemasons is there is no secret. They're viewed as an extension of the Templar Knights, which is like an old order of like Catholic militant whatever. But the Templar Knights haven't existed for like 800 years, and the Freemasons are completely unconnected. They were just, when they were formed, they were looking for some way to demonize the Freemasons, so they tried to tie them to these secret old orders, these old Catholic whatevers. It's just nonsense. It's just a social group that hosts parades and community events and stuff. That's it.
Yeah,
but they're men only.
Yeah, we did talk about it. I forgot
about it. Okay, that's fine.
Still good because someone in chat might not know.
Right. Yeah, it's always good to explain this stuff again.
Hey, that fella's talking about me.
And that makes a difference, doesn't it?
These are your enemies. These are the people who are trying to take over our country. Now you know them. You know what they stand for. And it's up to you and me to fight them. Fight them and destroy them before they destroy us. Thank you.
One poor dumb fool clapping his hands into a bloody nub.
Before he said Masons, you were ready to agree with him.
Well, yes, but he was talking about, what about those other people?
But in this country, we have no other people. We are American people, all of us.
What about you? You aren't American, are you?
I was born in Hungary, but now I am an American citizen. And I have seen what this kind of talk can do. I saw it in Berlin.
What were you doing there?
I was a professor at the university. I heard the same words we have heard today. But I was a fool then. I thought Nazis were crazy people, stupid fanatics.
Well, they were, of course. It's just...
He thought that was all they were.
Yeah. And really, like, the Nazi Party was very small, all things considered. 15 to 20% of the country. I think Trump's bottom is probably 25 to 30%. I think he could do literally anything, and 25% of the country would support him no matter what. It was about the same with the Nazis. But there were a lot of, like, people that had 1 foot in, 1 foot out with the Nazi Party. It was a very right-wing society, and it was moved even further right-wing by the Nazis, and it's the same with the United States.
But unfortunately, it was not so. You see, they knew that they were not strong enough to conquer a unified country. So they split Germany into small groups. They used prejudice as a practical weapon to cripple the nation.
Yep.
Of course, that was not easy to do. They had to work hard to do it. You see, we human beings are not born with prejudices. Always they are made for us. Made by someone who wants something. Remember that when you hear this kind of talk.
And this cannot possibly be... this is such an important point to make. We were not born with these prejudices. They were made for us by somebody who wants something.
This is why if you ever find yourself falling into an us versus them mentality, you need to step back and look at what you're actually thinking about. I don't even have an us versus them mentality with Trump supporters. I think a lot of them are crazy.
They have an us versus them mentality with us.
I think a lot of them are crazy for supporting him and stuff. But, like, I have family who support him blindly. They don't do research. They don't understand what they're supporting. And they cherry pick specific views and say, he's working to make this better. Right. I have sympathy for them because they are idiots.
Right.
I don't think that they are... I don't have the us versus them mentality with them, is what I'm trying to say.
Deeply disturbing to watch it unfold in front of us, though.
Somebody is going to get something out of it, and it isn't going to be you. This is not classroom theory. I saw it happen. I saw it first in Berlin in 1932. 5 young men that I knew were standing in the crowd listening to the Nazi speaker. Eric was a Catholic. Anton, a student of mine, was a Jew. Heinrich owned a small hardware store. Karl was a farmer. And Hans was an unemployed metal worker.
To all true Aryan Germans, I say it is time you inherited the nation which rightfully belongs to you. To you alone belongs the glorious destiny of the greater Germany. The Nazi Party will provide land for the farmer, work for the worker, and profits for the small businessman. Who is getting these things now? The Jew. The Jew who has stolen our nation and our birthright. Who makes all the money and takes all our jobs? The Jew! He must be shunned. He must be ostracized. He must be eliminated.
This is how it happened. I mean, this is very much how it happened in the United States as well, right? Immigrants are responsible for all of our problems. They're, it's an invasion. They're sending people from mental institutions in to hurt us, and they're stealing our jobs and all of this other stuff. It's identical.
Notice how they were all friends and they were all students from the same person, but when each of them got listed and then their enemy was their other friend, they all stared at him and backed away and got angry.
Yep, that division.
Yeah.
And the Catholics. We don't want our great nation run by a foreign church. We Germans will know what to do with these people when the time comes. They and their faith must be destroyed. Then there are the Freemasons. In Germany, we have no place for secret societies. There will be only one society, and that is the Nazi Party. There will be no secrecy about that in the new...
Now they're backing up, and these three have all been, separated?
Yeah.
These three have all been separated and distinguished as different. And now everyone's mad at them. Now they're all backing up, they're all angry. And also, notice how these are all things that you can't tell about them.
Yeah, they all look white, they all look like European or whatever, right?
Yeah, none of them, I mean, they wear, like, the Catholic, he's wearing religious symbols, and the Freemason has his ring on, but other than those things, these are just personal differences. These aren't...
They have a lot more in common than they have different.
Yeah, it's just one religion, one group, one whatever.
And they need to separate these people to succeed in what they're doing. They need to divide and conquer. And that, people have incredible, deep pride in being in the in-group. You feel special.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what we're seeing with Trump and Trump supporters, MAGA. They feel special, unique.
Don't spread hatred in general, but if you're looking around and the people that you're hating are exactly the same as you, then there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Greater Germany.
One by one, he attacked each minority and he split them off one from the other. These men were all fellow Germans when they came here today. Now they were split into rival groups, suspicious of each other, hating each other. They were being swindled, all of them. But the man who was really being fooled was Hans. He was pure German, according to Nazi standards. To him they promised everything, and he fell for it.
You who are true Aryan Germans will share the glorious destiny of our fatherland. You are the pure-blooded, the master race. It is your divine right to rule, and the Nazi Party stands ready to put you into power. It is for you to command all Germany, and someday the entire world.
And now he feels special.
That's how Hans became a Superman. They gave him a uniform and they pumped up his ego. He wasn't just a little fellow out of work anymore. He was a member of the master race. His wife couldn't quite understand. Even though he was a Superman, there wasn't any food in the house.
The Aryan belief went beyond just, they're uniquely special or whatever. And it turned into actual literal supernatural belief in how they are supernaturally superior. Like, they had this whole underlying belief about a group of people called the Aryans from the Indo-Iranian region who moved to like Northern Europe, Norse area or whatever, who were incredibly intelligent and incredibly strong and physically larger and had blonde hair and blue eyes, many of them, but not all of them. That's not like a thing that'll rule out your qualification as an Aryan. But the reason that that race does not exist anymore is because Semites poisoned the blood of the Aryans in their mind. So the point is that this was a supernatural belief, an actual full-blown supernatural belief.
Stupid woman. Didn't she realize that the Nazis were going to make jobs for everybody? There would be plenty of food and clothing and a new house. Everything they wanted. The glorious future of Germany was to be theirs.
And they got it by, I mean, a lot of the people at the top, they got it by stealing it from Jews. Like, Jews that lived in the area, it was some tiny percentage. It was like 2-3% of Germany was Jewish, and they would try to leave Germany, and they'd have all their stuff confiscated, all of their goods, all of their properties, their money, their everything would all be taken.
Narek will put the slogan in chat, but I can't read German.
Ein Land, ein Reich. I'm sorry. Ein Land, ein Reich, ein Volk, ein Führer. Ein means one. One land, one property, one empire, one people, one leader is what that means. Yeah. And I'm just looking through here.
German master over here.
I try not to toot my own horn. Toot toot, baby.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just kidding. I don't know. The point is that, they also talked a lot about, what was it? Lebensraum or something, I think is what they call it, living space. They needed to expand. They needed to take territory so that they had extra room to grow, like as a country, to have children and everything. And Hitler was giving like awards, personal awards, and cash payment to Aryan women who had like more than 4 children, more than 8 children, and more than 10 children. They would personally get an award. I think Hitler gave out like 40 awards for the highest one or something like that. But yeah.
And their children would someday rule the world. But his wife, silly woman, still wondered where the next meal was coming from. Hans didn't like that kind of talk. It was dangerous. For that kind of talk, people should be put in jail.
For wondering where you're gonna eat? Like, for wondering if you're ever gonna have food again?
For being negative about the Nazi party to any degree, even if it's because you're dying, you know?
You should be in jail
Yep.
for not agreeing with them.
Yep.
Hans had swallowed the bait all right. And these were the men who baited the hook. Why?
So Goebbels is right in the far end of the frame, and I think to the right of him is supposed to be Heinrich Himmler, who ran the Gestapo and a whole bunch of other things. To his left is Rudolf Hess, who is Hitler's best friend and helped him edit Mein Kampf. On the far right is Göring, who was Hitler's second in command, and if Hitler died, then Göring would take control. I'm not sure who these other people are. Is the one on the second to the left supposed to be Hitler himself? These aren't actual real... I don't think this is real footage.
Hans could come to power?
The one in the middle there is Hitler, I think.
No, one in the middle is Goebbels.
No, not straight in the middle, left middle.
Oh, yeah.
Like in the middle of everyone.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting.
Of course not. So they could come to power.
I'm sorry, step back. Let's listen again.
So that Hans could come to power? Of course not. So they could come to power. They would merely use Hans to help them get there. He would do the dirty work for them. Hans and thousands of others like him, all playing a sucker's game. They gambled with other people's liberty, and of course they lost their own. A nation of suckers. Hitler needed these people.
Look at this idiot. Does he know how to brush his hair? Brush your hair much? What a loser. Look at this moron on screen.
Do you know why his mustache was so...
I do. Do you know why?
I do.
Why?
Do you want to say?
Go ahead.
Is it the gas mask thing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Because he was in World War I and he was in a gas attack and his gas mask didn't fit correctly because he had a huge handlebar mustache. So he shaved his mustache down from that moment on, and it was his signature thing.
I love niche history facts.
Boy, you would love my books. It's true. Here you go. Here's a picture of Hitler before and after the mustache. Boom.
Oh, that is a terrible mustache, that first one. I mean, the second one too, but wow.
Yep. There you go. There are a bunch of pictures of Hitler with this gigantic mustache, too. It's not just this one.
His stupid mustache
here.
became so iconic that people call him Mustache Man.
Yeah, I know, right?
Wow, I thought his, like, after he shaved it, why is it so, like, long? Have it, like...
I guess that was a style at the time.
Have it, like...
It was called a toothbrush mustache and was fairly common during the first half of the 20th century. Interesting.
Ugh.
Yeah. Charlie Chaplin had it, too. But
It's
yeah.
so, like...
Wait, was that Fred Trump? Please tell me Fred Trump had that. It looked like Fred Trump for a split second. Okay.
Oh, well, I'll look it up.
All right. Anyway.
Why not?
Yeah.
Let's keep watching.
Okay. By the way, just a quick note I found really interesting. This is a cartoon from around the era that we're talking about right now, from around the 40s. This is how Americans portrayed black people, and this is how the Soviet Union portrayed black people. Soviet Union was evil, FYI. They were as bad as Nazis, maybe worse, but they had a very different perspective on things, and they allied with us at the end to take out the Nazis. Check this out.
These two cartoons are about Africa. Can you guess where they're from?
So we did.
Both were made in the mid-20th century. But let's take a closer look at how the United States portrayed African countries.
They portrayed Africans as basically like monkeys, like just dumb, foolish idiot, like didn't know what they were doing, were just like children, basically, were inferior, very clearly inferior. But the Soviet Union gave us a very different like portrayal. I think that's so interesting. This is still the American one, obviously.
Completely untouched by civilization.
Now, let's take a look at how the Soviet Union did it. Same subject, same century, but two very different stories.
That is so interesting, right?
I'm realizing that the way Carl had his hair styled and the way he made my brother style his hair... Oh, wow, okay.
This is a new species of monkey just discovered in 2017, and it's hideous, right?
That's terrible.
Yeah, anyway, you were saying?
The way he had his hair styled and the way he made my brother style his hair is the same way Hitler styled his hair. And I know that that's just like the common hairstyle with the gel and everything and whatever else. But wow, that is terrible.
There was a Nazi hairstyle, and it's commonly worn by members of the military. Even today, it's worn by members of the military. So it's not like, you know,
it wasn't intentional, but
right.
It's like I'm looking at the hairstyles on here. I'm like, wow, that is just. And he was like so upset when there was a single hair out of place.
Yeah.
I do think Carl would have been a Nazi. I do think.
Oh, no doubt. Yes, absolutely.
Is.
He would have been.
I said
yes.
would have. He probably is.
He is. Yeah, absolutely. I know that he's a Trump supporter. I actually know that that's factually true. And as far as I'm concerned right now, Trump supporters are Nazis nowadays.
I would like to talk to him again and like yell
Would
at
you?
him. Yeah, I want to yell at him. Okay. I like talking to really stupid or rude
insane.
Or whatever. Yeah, insane people. I just find it fun and entertaining.
Yeah, me too.
There was lots of work to be done.
I guess that's why we get along, huh? No, I'm just kidding. Implying that, yeah, okay.
Yeah, implying that you're explain your joke.
Okay.
There were trade unions to be smashed because unions were organized and might offer resistance. There were many political parties in Germany. These the Nazis destroyed. They were determined to smash every organization where people might band together and resist them. There were Jews to be beaten and killed.
As Martin Niemöller said, first they came for the communists and I said nothing because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists and I said nothing because I wasn't a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists and I said nothing because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews and I said nothing because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me and there was no one left to speak for me. He was a scumbag. He was a Nazi and a nutcase. And eventually, at the end of the war, he sided with the Soviet Union during the split and got like a commendation from the Soviet Union and everything. Anyway, he had such a Nazi past that when the Allies were sifting through Nazi records, that his name kept coming up. And they were like, there's no way we're putting this guy in charge of anything. He's very clearly a Nazi. He was the head of the church, the confessing church. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. The point is that they came for people who could offer any kind of resistance to them.
The Jews were not powerful, but they were a convenient excuse for all the nation's ills. And besides, a Nazi party member could not take over this man's store. Hundreds of Catholics were put in jail because the Catholic Church had strength and could resist the Nazi drive for power.
This is a little disingenuous. They did come for the Nazis. I'm sorry, they did come for the Catholics. However, the Catholics fully supported Hitler from day one. July 20th, 1933, my birthday, weirdly enough, the Catholic Church signed what was called the Reichskonkordat, which is basically the Empire's agreement, the Empire Treaty, where they agreed to swear an oath of loyalty to Hitler. And they did. Every single parish, every single priest and deacon and bishop and all of them all the way up and down the chain, all were instructed to swear an oath of loyalty to Hitler, and most did. In fact, all of them did if they wanted to keep their parish open. There was some outrage over it, but the Catholic Church supported Hitler right out of the gate. They supported him. That being said, as time went on, Hitler realized that he couldn't maintain full control over the Catholic Church, and he didn't like that. He wanted full control over every organization, and we've seen the same thing with Donald Trump. He wants to control every organization, even if they're no threat to him at all. The Smithsonian Museum, what threat are they? He wants to impose his control over it, or it shouldn't exist.
The Smithsonian Museum is a threat to his ideas of history.
Really, they're not a threat to him at all.
Yeah.
But he wants to impose his control over them and rewrite what they say about history, right?
Yeah, he wants to make white people look powerful and good, so he has asked them to remove bits about slavery and all of the atrocities that were committed.
In one man's humble opinion, I don't think it's about that. I don't think Trump has any ideological ties to pretty much anything. In my personal opinion, Trump is doing that for the exact same reason that Hitler did it, which is to exert control over these organizations.
I think it's to prove he has power.
Yeah, that's it. That's what it boils down to. And he didn't have control over the Catholic Church. Hitler didn't. So he, made this agreement with them, and they were honoring the agreement. In exchange for swearing this oath of loyalty, the Catholic Church received the right to teach in the public schools, basically, like teach the children in public schools what they wanted to teach. They controlled the public school system, the Catholics did. And some other things, like they made it a legal requirement that you could not legally wear priests' clothing unless you're like ordained by like the Catholic Church or whatever, things like that. But Hitler starts persecuting the Catholic Church little by little. Again, I wrote a book about it. Was Hitler an Atheist? It's on Amazon and Audible if you want to check it out. But he starts persecuting them. He looked for some line of attack, and his line of attack was they're taking advantage of children. Now, there's a reason he picked that instead of they're like in there partying and taking ecstasy and like rubbing all over the walls and stuff. Because the taking advantage of children bit is more believable. Because it actually was happening. That's why that was the line of attack. So the point is that Hitler attacked the Catholic Church to bring it into line, and it worked. And after World War II, prosecutors in Europe had to get permission from the United Nations to prosecute claims of child sexual abuse against the Catholic Church. And it wasn't until 50 years later. All those children who were taken advantage of between 1945 and 1985 were just swept under the rug because nobody wanted to risk it being, wanted to risk being tied to the Nazis because of what Hitler did. Anyway, he charged them with immorality for taking advantage of children. This is an accurate depiction. It really reached a crescendo in 1935. And then the Pope met with Prince Philip von Hessen, is that the name? In an apartment building. It's super, super secret meeting. And this is after 1939 when Pius XI died. Pius XII takes over and he meets with Philip von Hessen, I believe, on behalf of the Nazi government to try to set things right. And for the most part, it worked, but there was still a lot of tension between the Catholic Church and the Nazi government for the entire time beyond that. Anyway.
They had split the nation into 100 pieces, and then one by one, they had destroyed the pieces. Over these broken pieces, the Nazis rode into power. All
right. One of the things that, one of the methods they used was Hitler would demonize this group that he didn't previously have a problem with. He would demonize them and he'd start talking all kinds of smack, and they would jump to appease him, do whatever it took to make him stop talking about them. That's what happened with the Catholic Church.
Also, everything that Trump is currently doing is to prove to himself and others that he has power and that he can do it. He's proving to MAGA that he's a dictator, he can do whatever he wants, and MAGA says, oh, this is perfect, this is exactly what we need right now.
It's identical. It's identical in every single way to what happened in Germany, and I think that's intentional. All right, should we continue or should we wait? Yeah, let's continue.
Party, one nation, one religion.
Oh, hey, Nerical said that a minute ago. One party, one nation, one people, one religion. Or one Führer, I think, is actually what Nerical said. But yeah, one leader. That's the idea, I suppose.
These men had won their struggle for power. They now ruled all of Germany.
This is Hitler on the left. This is supposed to be Himmler, and then Goebbels, and then Göring on the right.
But still they had trouble with their oldest and most persistent enemy, the truth. They found that truth does not die easily, and so they decided to abolish truth. One great source of truth is literature, so they burned books, 20 million of them. Many great men in Germany who were spokesmen for truth were jailed or driven from their country. Teachers, writers, scientists. Education was discouraged. In 5 years, college attendance dropped 53%.
That's interesting, isn't it? Does it sound familiar? Think Charlie Kirk. College education is a waste of time. Don't bother. It's fascinating how history repeats itself, isn't it? Fascinating and disturbing simultaneously.
It was forbidden to listen to a British radio program or read an American newspaper.
Yeah, people used to hide under their blankets because it was a surveillance state. Before cameras were widespread, before, voice recording, before, they had these things, but they weren't widespread, and they weren't on every street corner the way that they are today, like in the United States. People believed that they were being watched. They weren't even safe in their own heads. And they used to sit on a chair and cover themselves with a blanket and turn their little radio up just a hair, where you click it right past the notch and just barely turn it up, put it up against their heads, because they believed that the Nazi government was listening through their walls. And they were right in some cases. It's wild.
Or read an American newspaper. In Nazi Germany, you had to get your information from Dr. Goebbels, He knew what was best for you. You couldn't see this movie or listen to this music. And you couldn't watch Joe Louis fight because the champion had black skin. He disproved Hitler's theory of Nordic supremacy. Albert Einstein, one of the world's great scientists, disproved that theory too. He was non-Aryan, so he had to leave Germany. His mind was dedicated to the search for truth, and the Nazis, having sold a lie, were most afraid of truth. The church was one force in Germany still strong enough to proclaim the truth in public.
No doubt is possible that we Christians are in a grave battle. Against us stands a faith out of blood. The battle signals range from cool repudiation to hate-filled causes. Weapons are used that centuries have dulled.
This is another kind of it's taking it out of context. The Protestant church, I believe, is what they're portraying here, was not opposed to Hitler. They were very much in favor of Hitler in the Protestant church. It was mostly Lutheran. I think 20 of the 28 districts were Lutheran. I believe that 4 were Reformed Church, which is the predecessor to Presbyterian, and 4 more were called United Churches, which is like it's the Reformed Church and the Lutheran Church merging, and they were very much in favor of Hitler. It split into 3 factions in an event called the Kirchenkampf, the church struggle, and the Lutheran Church, or let me rephrase, they elected a Reich Church president for the first time. There wasn't one before that, but there was a leader, a guy that kind of led it loosely, led the conglomeration, named Pechman before this. But the official election got a guy named Bodelschwinge elected in for 6 months until the Nazis harassed him out of office. He left, after 6 months. He couldn't handle it anymore. And they held another election where Hitler personally endorsed the new Reich bishop named Ludwig Müller. And this guy was like Müller was an army chaplain and a nobody. Like, nobody had ever heard of this guy. But Hitler endorsed him, and he won. And he reformed the church to align it more closely with Nazi ideology. They were Christian nationalists, and they created a new denomination called the German Christians. Now, one of the founders of the German Christian, or the Deutsche Christen movement, I forget the guy's name now, talked about how he wanted to, or some in the movement wanted to name them the Protestant Christians, or wanted to name themselves the Protestant nationalists, the Christian nationalists, Evangelische Nationalismus is what it was. But Hitler vetoed it in favor of the German Christians because it was more inclusive. Victoria Barnett says, who's the expert on Bonhoeffer and the Kirchenkampf, she says that they never tried to name themselves a Protestant nationalists. So, take it with a grain of salt. But they were Christian nationalists, she says. So, anyway, this denomination cut out a bunch of Bible books, the ones that were Jewish related in any way, Old Testament, and a bunch of a bunch of the books written by Paul were either slimmed down, changed to remove Jesus's Jewish ancestry, things like that. And Hitler fully endorsed them and tried to take over the church, and largely succeeded. I'm trying to think if there's something else I want to mention on this subject. There was some pushback led by Martin Niemöller, not by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Bonhoeffer was not a leader in the confessing church, the opposition to it. He was out of the country. He wasn't even involved in the formation of the confessing church. It was entirely Niemöller who was a Nazi. They just believed that the confession of belief was being violated, that anybody can come to Jesus and be saved. Hitler claimed that, or the German Christians believed that you couldn't come to Jesus and be saved if you were Jewish. So anyway, what we have here is an example of a guy from presumably the Confessing Church, which was somewhere in the vicinity of 10% of the church body, opposing Hitler. This was very, very uncommon, actually. And when they did speak out like this publicly, they were banned. They were banned from the start from taking donations. All church donations had to be sent to the main church body and were then, like, doled out according to need or whatever. And the confessing churches didn't get any money from the church body, so they started taking donations, 2 donations at the door, one for the church body and one for that church, the confessing church. That's kind of how it played out. What?
The aim of this battle is to dislodge Christianity from our fatherland.
This Catholic priest was arrested the following day on charges of...
Oh, this is a Catholic, okay.
Cool repudiation to hate-filled causes. Weapons are used that centuries have dulled. The aim of this battle is to dislodge Christianity from our fatherland.
This Catholic priest was arrested the following day on charges of immorality.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Immorality. They were accused of taking advantage of children.
The Protestant church also continued to try and fight for truth.
No. The Protestant church fully capitulated. Only 10% of the Protestant church was opposed to Hitler to any degree. 15 to 20% were directly in favor of Hitler, and the rest were, they were called intact churches, and they leaned right. They leaned toward Hitler by and large.
He who desires liberty for himself cannot deny it to others, lest he lose what he has gained. This is the great lesson the world can learn from Germany.
The Nazis put this man in a concentration camp. There were others who spoke for truth, and I am proud to say that educators were among them.
Educators disproportionately represented Hitler, actually. Like, almost all educators, almost all, like, middle, elementary, high school teachers and university teachers supported Hitler, believe it or not. More than the general population, surprisingly.
And what, may I ask, is an Aryan? I don't know myself.
There is no such thing. It was made up.
But let us see what our present so-called authorities have to say about him. They say he is tall.
That's funny. Goebbels, an unflattering image.
Slender.
Goering, he was famously known to be effeminate. So he liked wearing kind of effeminate clothing, liked wearing women's clothes on occasion, and Hitler overlooked it because he was so close to him.
Blue-eyed.
Rudolf Hess, Hitler's best friend.
And blonde. There is no Aryan race. And more important, there is no master race. There are people who may find these ideas convenient, but science cannot support them. There is no scientific proof that there's any correlation between a man's racial characteristics and his native ability.
Did they wear that all the time?
Yes. They wore uniforms to classes, certainly. But if you notice, not everybody is wearing one. That's because members of the Nazi Party who were particularly devout wore the armbands and the uniforms. They're called brown shirts.
Yeah.
And it's because of their brown uniforms.
Yeah, they're like the Proud Boys.
Yeah, I would say so.
I expected them to wear, like, armbands or something, but they're in full Nazi uniform over here.
Not everybody, as you can see in the back. Most are just wearing regular suits. But yeah, the ones that were true believers liked to identify themselves as such.
I assumed that the ones in regular suits weren't full Nazis. Or weren't Nazis.
Nearly everybody was a member of the Nazi Party, though. You had to be.
Or else it was, like, dangerous.
Yeah, or you were drawing attention to yourself, and nobody wanted attention drawn to themselves.
Yeah.
So a lot of people joined the party nominally, and in the aftermath during denazification, they were sent to Spluchhammer courts to determine their degree of Nazi affiliation, and they were rated 1 to 5. I believe 5 was like arch criminals, like Goring. 4 was very involved in leadership. 3 was you were like a regional leader, all the way down to 1, which was a nominal member, but you were actively working against Nazi principles or whatever. You were part of the resistance, and you were exonerated if you were a 1, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it was 5. But anyway, people who were nominal members were exonerated, is my point.
I was gonna say this is like showing up to class with a Trump t-shirt, Trump pants, and a MAGA hat and everything else, but they actually do that quite often. So
totally.
It's like...
Totally, yeah. They want to kind of whatever. My grandpa, my mom's dad?
Yeah.
He was MAGA?
That makes sense.
He was hard MAGA, too. Like, he went down, this is in Trump's first term, he went downtown to do some, I don't know, go to the bank or something, and he wore his whole MAGA garb, like MAGA hat, the whole 9. And my mom was like, Dad, you're gonna get beaten up if you go to town like this. And he did anyway. He didn't care. He was a Korean War veteran. He would have fought for his life, but he was pretty weak at the end, so he would have lost. But the point is that it's identical to being Nazi, identical.
Yeah,
in every way.
I mean, I didn't know that he was MAGA, but I also it makes so much sense. If you had asked me, I would have said, yeah, probably.
Yep,
it's crazy.
It is.
Or character.
Which is crazy because my grandpa was born in 1931 and lived through not just World War II, but the denazification aftermath of it. And it's like, how could he...
Was he a Nazi?
My grandpa?
Yeah. I mean, he was a kid, but like...
I don't think that he was a Nazi, but by the end of his life, he was absolutely a Nazi, yeah. To wear the MAGA garb like that and talk about immigrants and all the stuff that he said and did, yes, absolutely. There's some people who are MAGA who are just uninformed, like
my brother,
like Aunt Sarah. She is just uninformed and votes Trump for because he's a Republican and she likes Republican economic policies. But my brother is a Nazi. My brother is a Nazi. Knowing, intentional, is fully aware of the similarities and is all in and voted for exactly what's happening right now.
Yeah, those are the people I refuse to talk to and be friends with. The ones who know what's happening. Or
my grandpa knew what was happening and voted for these policies. He was a Nazi. He was not uninformed.
I wonder what it was like as a kid, if he was able to sit here and get that deep into it. I think maybe when he was a kid, he probably had the same opinions. I don't think he sat there and went, wow, Hitler's a really bad person.
Well, I got to tell you, he was in the Korean War.
Right, yeah.
And when I was younger and went and visited him, I remember getting into conversations with him, and he would, there are words that they used back then during the Korean War that are slurs that I wouldn't use normally, but he would refer to people as SPICS and GOOKS all the time, casually. And I'm talking before Trump. I'm talking 2000 to 2005. He would, during the Iraq War, he would be referring to people like that. He was a Nazi. And as a Korean War veteran, it seems pretty clear to me that the dude was a far-right extremist all the way back in the 50s to use that type of language. Have you ever seen MASH?
Yeah, he used to watch it a lot.
Yeah, he loved MASH, but...
That's the only reason I've ever seen it.
Yeah, but in MASH, I get he missed the point, because Hawkeye used to get people every now and then that would come in and use words like that, and he would trash those people. He'd say, I don't want that kind of language around here. They're people. They're not, whatevers. And I guess my grandpa just lost the plot. He just missed it because he would refer to people that way anyway. So
sometimes you can look at a person and just go, wow, I know that person is MAGA. he was one of those people.
Absolutely. Sadly.
I didn't visit him towards the end of his life. I wasn't visiting my grandma at the time or anything like that, so I didn't really see him. But I can remember, like, when I was a kid, going there and, like, chilling with him and my great grandma, watching, he was watching MASH, and I'd be, like, sitting in there. He just looked like someone who's a deep Trump supporter. He just had that kind of, like, style, vibe, whatever.
Yeah.
And two, I can remember him, like, getting angry and, like, raising his voice a lot.
Oh yeah, he was violent, actually, and angry all the time. Like, I have no respect for that guy, honestly. Like, he worked hard, he took care of his family, and ran himself into the ground doing so. But he was a piece of trash, my grandpa was, and I went to his funeral and immediately basically realized that was a mistake.
Yeah.
And my grandma died a few months later, and I said, I'm not even going to bother. I'm not going to bother.
It wasn't a few months. It was a few years.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
She died really recently.
Well, anyway, I just said I'm not doing it. I don't even care. I realized that these people are not my family. They didn't care about me that much. I don't want anything to do with it. So I didn't bother going to hers. Great
grandma. She was fun. She was nice. I visited her right at the end of her life last year. She died, I think, in September of last year. I visited her. Yeah.
Okay.
I visited her, like, right at the end of her life, and she did not remember anyone or anything. I mean, my grandma was visiting her consistently, so she knew my grandma, but she had to, like, be reminded of who I was pretty often.
And, you know, I saw her at my grandpa's funeral, and, like, I printed a bunch of books out, like, on Shutterfly, a bunch of pictures of my grandpa with each of his kids, and I gave all of these books to each of my aunts and uncles, and I gave one to my grandma, and she was like, "Who are you?" She didn't remember me. And look, I understand that's probably because she's old, but it's kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a representation of how I grew up. Like, the woman was never there. She never had anything to do with me. She didn't care. You know, she got a Game Boy for my cousin Bobby. She didn't get one for me. Mm-hmm. She invite Bobby over to stay the night. She didn't invite me. So it's like, maybe if she had had me around more often, she would have remembered. And that's when I decided I wasn't going to her funeral.
Yeah, she had me around a lot. I visited her every year. I hung out at her house. I think she intended to give me... She had a huge American Girl doll collection. Like, every single American Girl doll ever made, she had it all.
Yeah.
I think she intended to give me some, but I never ended up getting it.
They probably auctioned it off.
No.
They did. They auctioned off my grandpa's watches. He had a huge watch collection.
Yeah, no, they, Grandma distributed it to whoever in the family wanted some. I just think I forgot to grab mine or whatever. Maybe she didn't give me one, but...
Maybe she has one for you that's at her house.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I don't know. But point is, she knew who I was, and she didn't know my dad. She sat there. She was at the end of her life, end of dementia, end of everything.
I don't think she had dementia. She was just old.
I
don't think she had dementia.
I think she did.
Okay.
She had to be in medical care consistently. She was living in it was a nursing home, but, like, in a hospital bed and everything.
Maybe so then.
She couldn't do anything for herself or anything like that. Anyways, I mean, Grandma had to remind her who she was for a second.
Same with my grandpa.
Yeah. But anyways, point is, I am so much younger than my father was last time he saw her, and it took her, like, 3 minutes to know who I was, or at least have a vague idea.
Or at least pretend to.
Yeah, it took her 3 minutes to have at least a vague idea of who I was, and she didn't know my dad at all. So...
They're just not my family, honestly.
Yeah.
And half of them are Nazis, and I don't even care. So.
The other half are brainwashed.
Yeah. But anyway, all right, let's continue with this.
Sorry.
In all racial groups, we find the same range of potentialities. We find idiots and geniuses. We find criminals and philanthropists. We must judge each man as an individual and not by the color of his skin. or his eyes, or by the length of his nose.
The apple bag on this dude to come along and say this stuff in a classroom full of like actual Nazis that you can, like, they're wearing the uniform.
Mm-hmm.
That had to be, he knew he was taking a massive risk with this. He knew he was. And this did happen. This happened a lot, actually, in Germany. And it's important to stand up and speak your mind, or at the very least, don't repeat propaganda you're being instructed to repeat at the bare minimum. And this guy fought back, and he paid the price in this film. He was denounced. They had a denouncement program. Somebody does something wrong, you call the Gestapo, the Geheime Staatspolizei is what that stands for. The Gestapo, the special secret police, or the special state police. You call them and you tell them, I'm denouncing this person. They've done something wrong, something subversive to Germany. And you tell them what it was. They show up, they investigate. If it was legitimate, they take him to jail. If it was like, you know, a kid denounces his teacher for giving too much homework, they ask questions, they talk to the other students, and then they put it in a file and leave. This guy was denounced, is what they're portraying here.
Someone said at least you guys have some non-brainwashed relatives. Barely. I have
really.
my mother, and like cousins that I don't talk to ever. So
Yeah, not really. We don't really.
they're all like
They're all brainwashed.
They're all brainwashed, and the ones who weren't died already. So
Yeah.
oh well. Anyways,
That's kind of unfortunately how it played out in Germany too. Before you knew it, like literally everybody was in support of this insanity, you know.
Yeah.
Come in, gentlemen. Make yourselves comfortable.
He knew what was happening.
There are many differences between individuals. We each have different capabilities, different backgrounds, different views about what's right and what's wrong. Like the difference between me and
these fine specimens of Aryanism here.
These gentlemen.
Okay, one's a little chunky, but they're still fine specimens of Aryanism, right?
Just arrived. But that is not the difference in race. It is a difference in the way we think. Remember that.
Did you see that look they gave each other? Wow, they were upset.
And remember that there is no master race. That is a scientific truth. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying.
Dude wasn't even fighting back. They slapped him for no reason. If they had just grabbed his arms, he would have gone.
Yeah, well, that's how they do it.
Violence.
It's all about violence.
Violence and force, excessive force.
Yep.
Truth had been abolished in Germany. A lot of my German friends wondered what had hit them. How did it happen? Where did it start? It started right here.
Yeah, it was very sudden, like all at once. Everybody is suddenly endorsing like Nazi, they're doing Nazi apologia. They're saying like, you know, the Jews are causing problems for us and we do need to do something about this immigrant problem and everything else.
Which is also really crazy to me because it's like, it wasn't a gradual buildup. It's never a gradual buildup. You would think they slowly inserted these ideas and beliefs, but no, they said it all at once and everyone just started to agree. It wasn't like a 50-year process.
There is a gradual buildup if you know what to look for.
Yeah.
But general society has no idea. They're not seeing it happening or whatever. But like when Trump, you know, at the debate with Hillary Clinton in 2016, when he said basically that she was bussing in like immigrants to vote for her, that was one of those signs that we should have seen, that I did see, that a lot of people saw, that was building it up, that was moving it in that direction. But it all hits like a ton of bricks at once when it comes down to it.
And this was where it could have been stopped. If those people had stood together, if they had protected each other, they could have resisted the Nazi threat. Together they would have been strong. But once they allowed themselves to be split apart, they were helpless. When that first minority lost out, everybody lost out. They made the mistake of gambling with other people's freedom. Now let's see how those bets paid off. Karl the farmer was gambling on a better life for himself. What he got was extra hours of back-breaking work, as much as 100 hours a week. He was forced to stay on his land and produce what he was told to produce, because now Hitler was preparing for war. For Heinrich, who owned a hardware store, the bet didn't pay off either. 104,000 small businesses were closed in 2 years. And for Hans, conditions hadn't improved any. He had a job now.
Again, for a lot of people, conditions did improve. They got to reap the rewards, the benefits of stealing things from people. Look at ICE and the people who are being hired to work for ICE. They're getting like $100,000 a year to work for ICE, going around and messing with people. That's good money. That's a massive quality of life jump for these people. A lot of people benefited gloriously in this situation in Germany and are benefiting off of the system that we have right now. It's just honest people suffered terribly, or the older people or the young people who were not capable of whatever.
Also, I want you guys to take notice that one of the main foundations was economy and I will help small businesses, whatever. Trump said the exact same thing. I have a friend whose parents voted, or I had a friend whose parents voted for Trump because they owned businesses and they said, Trump promised to help us small businesses. Trump promised whatever. And now they're regretting their decision.
Populism.
I assume.
It's populism. Yeah. That's what this is. It's populist language. Help the little guy. Make things better for the little guy.
Yeah, and I assume that everyone who did that, or a lot of the people who did that, are recognizing that their businesses are now failing more than ever.
Oh, absolutely. We've seen a ton of examples of it on the Tic Tac.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I love watching that.
Yeah.
Factory, but he worked long hours for little pay. The working conditions grew increasingly bad.
34 deaths per 1,000 workers in 1932, before Hitler's takeover. 1938, 62 deaths per 1,000 workers. So it doubled. Yeah, not good.
Though he didn't like the job, he wasn't permitted to leave it.
That's literally illegal to quit your job.
Still wasn't enough food in his house. Hitler said you couldn't have butter and cannon. So Hans couldn't have butter. And when Hitler decided the time was right, Germany went to war. Not by declaring war, but by a carefully prepared sneak attack. Once again, Hitler needed Hans to do his dirty work. Hans was an expert at brutality by this time, and Hitler had decided to use Hans and his brutality against other peoples, the Czechs, the Poles, the French, the Russians. But in the crucial test of war, Hitler's race theories didn't pay off. His pure-blooded supermen were defeated by the mongrel armies he despised. By the British at El Alamein. By the Russians at Stalingrad. And then on D-Day by American soldiers of every color and religion, who smashed across the Normandy beaches and drove on through to the heart of Germany. For the misguided Germans who had swallowed the Nazi bait, the Nazi game did not pay off. The continent of Europe was strewn with millions of German bodies, pure Aryan bodies. Karl the farmer was left in the snow outside of Moscow. Heinrich stayed in Italy at Salerno. And Hans, who was going to rule the world, got only a little patch of Normandy that he could call his own. We must never let that happen to us.
The war in the Eastern Front, the war in Russia, was horrific and ugly and brutal. People couldn't light a fire to stay warm because they would, the enemy would see the smoke and they would fire on the position. So they literally, we're talking like -20 degree weather. they had to stay buried in these little foxholes. Basically, they dig a big hole like 6 feet deep or so. They'd climb in and they'd just sit in there to try to shield themselves from the wind, and they'd cover the top. It was not warm enough. They had to cook soup in their helmets and stuff, without causing any kind of without creating a smoke of any sort. And people were literally losing limbs. They were like frostbitten limbs. Their feet were they were wet from the snow, and they were degloving. Do you know what that is?
Mm-mm.
To where the skin literally just comes right off like a glove. Yeah, because conditions were so bad, and they described it, like journals from that time described it as hell. It was hell. It was maybe one of the most brutal moments in World War history, in the history of war in the world. I mean,
Someone said MAGA's minds can be changed. Not
some of them.
Yeah, not
some can't.
all the time. Again, like I have family, and I managed to change my brother's mind, and then he went directly back into that cycle of the people who are convincing him of whatever. I cannot change his mind now. Not until he gets out of his father's house. And I mean, there are a lot of people like that. So
heavy brainwashing, 24/7.
Yeah, it's easy to change their minds when they're willing to change, but a lot of the time they shut down.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize this, but Germany did not attack Russia in the wintertime. They attacked in the spring, which is the correct time to attack. And they thought it was going to go really fast, but it didn't. It took forever. Like, it took months, way, way longer. Like, look at look at Russia attacking Ukraine. They thought it was going to be like a 2-week thing and they're done, right? And here we are years later. That's what happened in Germany. They thought it was going to be rapid, and it deteriorated. It fell apart, and they were unable to, they couldn't take it quickly like they intended. So it all fell apart, and they all got frostbite, and it was just hell.
By the way, guys, check out my new shop, owenmorgan.com/shop. I have a bunch of really cool designs on there.